Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're dialing in from. Hopefully everyone can see the screen as part of the webinar, and if so, you can see that we're here to talk to you today about the state of in-flight Wi-Fi. And just like when you're on an airplane and flight attendants give you the option of saying, you're on this flight going to this destination, and if you don't want to go, please exit the plane now. I'm giving you the last chance to make sure you're in the right webinar. So this is the State of In-Flight webinar. We're going to spend about half an hour going through some positives around what is happening in in-flight. So let's get started. I want to set the tone a bit for the agenda today. We'll do some introductions here very quickly. We'll do a bit of a macro view of the state of in-flight Wi-Fi, specifically concentrating on what's happening in the U.S. as the majority of the folks here today reside in the U.S. and are very interested, I would assume, given your attendance, on what is happening from an in-flight perspective. I will then turn it over for an update specifically with Gogo, for a Gogo in-flight Wi-Fi overview. And then we'll do a bit more of a macro view on in-flight from a global perspective. So let's start off with some introductions. First of all, my name is Jeff Mabe. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for iPass. I also have Kathee Muldermans, who is the Director of Global Alliances for Gogo Inflight. During the presentation today, you will have the opportunity, it should be on your screen, if you want to ask any questions. We encourage you to ask questions, as we're going to denote about the last half an hour of today's session for any questions relative to what we're presenting today or anything you would like to know about in-flight. Do us a favor, though, when asking the question, please include your name and your company so we can be a little bit more personal in our response, and also make sure that if we need to do some follow-up, we know who's asking the questions. So with that, I want to jump into a bit about iPass, just to be clear about where iPass sits in kind of the ecosystem that is Wi-Fi. iPass is the leading provider of global mobile connectivity. The way that we offer our product is in an unlimited, everywhere invisible approach, and it's powered by the world's largest Wi-Fi network. Today we have over 60 million hotspots globally in over 120 countries. We don't actually operate or own any of our own network. We have about 160 plus network partners that we cobble together to provide access for our customer base. On any given day, any given time, there's 5 million devices that utilize our services. But more specifically, iPass is certainly looked as a leader in terms of in-flight, because today we have over 3,000 enabled commercial aircraft that, through partnerships like with Gogo, that allow our users to connect while in in-flight, which is the basis of today's discussion. So why we're all here today is we all agree that we want to stay connected. It's not a need, it's not a want to stay connected, it's a need to stay connected. A lot of you guys on the phone might manage a mobile team. Some of you may have business travelers. Some of you probably are business travelers that absolutely have the need to be connected, to stay connected, to be productive. Some kind of percentages here. 97% say that anytime, anywhere access to data and applications makes employees, individuals, much more effective, especially when they're getting on airplanes and traveling as part of their jobs. In turn, more and more of the airlines, specifically here in the U.S., and I'll talk to that in a bit, but more and more airlines are offering in-flight. Back in 2006, that's when companies started to begin offering some level of in-flight services. If you fast forwarded to 2008, our friends at Gogo made their debut on commercial aircraft. So it is now an absolute and indispensable need that is Wi-Fi, especially in in-flight. In fact, 75% of business travelers surveyed said that Wi-Fi, again, is vital to their productivity. Global travelers are bringing at least one Wi-Fi enabled device on board. From an iPass perspective, we're actually seeing 2 and 3 devices. That's kind of the norm with what our users have. So as Inflight has become more, in fact, one interesting piece here is Inflight has become more prevalent, even for my own travel patterns. I look to spend as little time in airports as I possibly can. And the reason that I'm able to do that is I no longer have to worry about getting to an airport early to send that last-minute email, to send that last-minute document, because I can spend more time at home before I get through TSA or global entry or flight through the security, and then have to worry about sitting down and getting connected in a noisy gate area. Because why? I know that I can get on my flight, I can sit down, I can get connected, and I can do my work and be very, very aggressive and very productive as it relates to having access to Wi-Fi. Okay? So we've talked a bit about the history of Inflight. So let's get into more about the state of Inflight as it is today. Again, some fun facts here. I think all of us don't necessarily fly because we're intrigued by the meal service that they're providing on aircraft. But as this slide shows, passengers are making decisions about how they travel and who they travel on. And Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi connectivity is at the top of the list in terms of importance over meals, entertainment, etc. We're seeing that those research are supporting the fact that this is an amenity that simply has to be part of an offering. As I mentioned earlier, those of us who live and work and travel in the U.S. have an actual benefit more so than the rest of the world. Regionally, the U.S. is the undisputed leader in in-flight Wi-Fi. There's simply more connected aircraft operating in the U.S. as compared to other regions in the world. More U.S. airlines have Wi-Fi enabled aircraft. Right now, you can pretty much get on a U.S. flag carrier flying around the U.S., and you will have Wi-Fi internet connectivity, as Kathee will talk about here in a bit with regard to Gogo. Now, not all is lost from our regional partners outside of the U.S. Europe has traditionally lagged behind because of difficulty installing base stations, et cetera. But basically, other airlines or international flight carriers have not necessarily prioritized Wi-Fi connectivity as part of an offering. That situation is quickly changing. I think what you'll see and what we're finding is carriers such as BA, carriers such as Air France, KLM, and others are rapidly rolling out, and over the next 12 to 24 months, there is going to be a change to where you will start seeing over-the-water connectivity being available as well as intra-Europe. And again, Kathee will talk about that a bit when she gets into the specifics of Gogo. Along those lines, just a very quick note. We talked about kind of the focus that airlines have in Wi-Fi. This slide highlights the top 10 airlines based on available seat miles. So you do have a smattering of the U.S. heavyweight carriers, Delta, United, American, Southwest. But you also have other airlines, as I mentioned earlier, that are starting to offer more of in-flight service. Lufthansa is certainly leading the way, Emirates and Etihad in the Middle East, and in Southeast Asia, Singapore has started to aggressively roll out an offering. You will also start to see airlines such as BA and, as I mentioned before, Air France, KLM, that are finally figuring out that Wi-Fi is important to their customers in terms of providing that access. So at this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kathee Muldermans at Gogo. Gogo, for those of you that don't know, they're the global leader at providing broadband connectivity solutions. iPass and Gogo have enjoyed a long and prosperous partnership that really began back in early 2012. That partnership has grown every year since, and now Gogo is very strategic for iPass as a partner. So Kathee, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for the opportunity to join you and your clients today. And Gogo just had a great announcement this morning that we've now surpassed 3,000 commercial aircraft, and we're available on over 12,000 flights a day. Our current airline partners are American, Air Canada, Alaska, Delta, Japan, United, and Virgin America. And Gogo has approximately 50% of the global market share in in-flight connectivity. And what we've seen is the demand for this has continued to soar. Based on a recent survey that Gogo conducted, more than half of global travelers factor in Wi-Fi in their choice of airlines when choosing a flight. And as Jeff had mentioned earlier, we found that 90% of global passengers bring at least one Wi-Fi enabled device on board with them. Personally, I carry 3. I've got my laptop, my tablet, and my iPhone with me at all times. Even on day trips, I can't leave home without all 3. And what I want to talk a little bit today about is the various technologies that Gogo has flying to stay connected. There's actually 3 different ways to provide in-flight connectivity using different frequency bands and technologies. I'm going to talk about the 3 of them. The first is air to ground, and then we'll talk about satellite, and then a hybrid of both. So the air to ground technology, or what we refer to as ATG, was launched back in 2008 with American Airlines as our first partner. And basically what we did is we took a cell tower and turned it upside down so that the antenna on top of the tower was pointed to the sky and provided about a 250-mile radius for connection. And then the existing Gogo ATG network today has over 250 cellular towers covering the continental U.S. and the commercial flight routes for Canada and Alaska. So how this technology works is that there's the antenna on the belly of the plane that sends and receives signals from the antenna found on the cell towers. And inside the aircraft, there's a central processing unit to kind of organize and send out the messaging. And then within the aircraft itself, there's strategically placed wireless access points that distribute the signal interiorly to the traveler's Wi-Fi enabled devices, enable for them to stay connected. Now, if you've ever been in your house and you've had a call that's dropped, can you imagine how difficult it is to keep signals going and transfer them while a plane is traveling 400 miles per hour? Pretty impressive. Now, currently, the peak speed for a full airplane on our air-to-ground or ATG-4 aircraft with approximately 150 passengers is 9.8 megabits per second. Now, in comparison, the average home internet network has speeds of varying between 15 and 25 megabits per second. So you can see that there's not that much bandwidth to distribute across an entire airplane, and that's why our services for the ATG aircraft are limited to email and basic internet surfing, and streaming video is not allowed. But the good news is Gogo plans to launch a next-gen ATG network in 2018 that will provide significant improvements in speed. Now, this particular slide here gives you an overview of what our Network Operations Center engineers look at and monitor 24/7. They're looking at our aircraft and the health of the aircraft as they're flying and staying connected to our network. The green aircraft are healthy aircraft, so they're receiving and sending signals to and from our base stations. And the ones that the engineers consider to monitor quite more intensely, I should say, are the red aircraft. And those are the ones that have issues on board or between the towers. So they try to work to solve them in real time and correct any issues that they can while the aircraft is flying. And if they can't, then they have maintenance meet the plane at the next destination to figure out if there's a need for an equipment swap or a system reboot. The second type of technology that we use for in-flight internet is utilization of satellites, which allows connectivity over water and remote locations. And we use KU and KA band satellite solutions. The difference between the two is that the KA is a newer satellite. But if you've traveled on an international flight with Gogo service, you've probably used our KA or KU band satellite connectivity service. Now, the exciting thing is our next gen 2KU, and this is our latest technology with speeds high enough to make streaming services possible to our customers on commercial aircraft. This technology offers a 2Ku flat panel antenna with up to 2 times more spectral efficiency, and with the smaller antenna, reduced drag, saving on fuel costs, and providing peak speeds of 70 megabits or more to the aircraft. Now, in comparison on a home network, if you have 3 or 4 things going on, and say 2 people are gaming on separate systems and one streaming a video, you may get some lag, but these problems pretty much go away with high Wi-Fi speeds above 50 megabits per second. Today, we have more than 130 aircraft installed with Gogo's 2Ku solution. 12 airlines have signed up for the service, representing more than 1,500 aircraft, and the majority are expected to be installed by the end of 2018. Additional global expansion for us includes partnerships with Air France-KLM, Virgin Atlantic, Aeromexico, GAL, Air Canada International, Japan Transoceanic, and British Airways and the Iberia International Aircraft. Pretty exciting stuff for us. Now, the next few slides, I'm going to go over survey results that Gogo conducted with a group of our customers that we call our Connected Class panel. And this panel of individuals has a great representation across our customer demographics and behavior, but most of them are business travelers. So the first question that they were asked was regarding the key insights regarding business travelers themselves, and it indicated that almost all business travelers who use Gogo believe that it makes them more productive when flying, and over half of them believe it helps them improve their work-life balance. Now, business travelers who use Gogo also find it essential that they have internet access when flying for business, and they also have high expectations in terms of their employers, allowing them to expense the in-flight internet purchases. This next screenshot shows that most of the customers that Gogo surveyed use in-flight internet for work, and the majority of them that were surveyed can expense it. And customers surveyed feel that the in-flight internet makes them more productive and helps them stay connected, restoring their work-life balance. I, for one, and Jeff, too, we travel quite a bit for work, and this has been a huge game changer over the course of the last 8 years, where we have the ability now to catch up on emails before landing for our weekend at home with our families or friends, and not have to deal with deadline situations that we could handle in flight before the 5 o'clock hour on Friday afternoon. And it's really, I think, across the board made a big difference from a productivity perspective. This slide here is that those that use in-flight internet for work agree that it helps them to get things done and saves them time. And then this last slide here showed that access to the in-flight internet has allowed our customers to respond to client requests immediately and meet deadlines. Gogo has many testimonials from travelers thanking us for allowing them to close deals while in flight and handle business deadlines that would normally have to wait until they landed. Gogo truly helps keep your travelers connected to family, friends, and colleagues at 30,000 feet, and helps your business travelers maintain a work-life balance and stay productive in flight. And with that, I'm going to hand back the controls to Jeff and bring you to the next slide.
Thanks very much, Kathee. So just a quick little side note. I love when technology actually works. As part of the chat, I got a response from one of the attendees that is actually listening and watching the webinar while on a flight right now. So in-flight really works when it works. So talk about being productive. So nicely done, Jim. So I'm going to make sure to move to the next. Oh, you moved to the next slide. Thank you. So we've talked about we've spoken in the past on this call about iPass and kind of our commitment to Wi-Fi, specifically around in-flight Wi-Fi. We've also heard, Kathee has walked us through why, where Gogo has come from, why they're the leader with regard to in-flight Wi-Fi, and learned what Gogo is planning to keep that leadership position, now and into the future. Just a couple of final data points, if you will. We've seen surveys results that are showing an incredible demand for in-flight. We've talked about this on a couple of other occasions in earlier slides. But it's nearly 100% of air travelers that, again, expect in-flight Wi-Fi. That demand is also coloring the way that people or companies are choosing airline partners. Today, we're finding on surveys that we've done, as long as other studies done by Gogo and others in the ecosystem, that 83% of entities actually choose airlines based on the availability of Wi-Fi. And for those of you that are business travel managers or who manage, folks that do travel, nearly 70% of people actually pay for Wi-Fi, even on long-haul flights, where the price of in-flight tends to be more expensive. Now, why that's interesting is if you look at Wi-Fi in general, most people today want to be connected, and they want to have the connection be like they have at their house or like they have in their office. They want it fast, they want it secure, and they want it free, right? Those three things don't necessarily match. In-flight is different. They still want access, but because of the importance of staying productive, 70% will actually pay for it. So, why not do this, right? It's simple, it's fast, it's secure relative to the solution that iPass provides. So the privilege is there, and it's utilized by customers across the board. In fact, probably a lot of the folks on the phone today are utilizing Wi-Fi in-flight, and we thank you for that. Just as a final view here, I talked earlier on about iPass and the commitment. Kathy's spoken about Gogo having now, as of today, over 3,000 planes that are Gogo enabled. iPass is the leader in terms of providing in-flight access for its customer base, for our customer base. We've talked about things, but from a North America perspective, now it's over 3,000 aircraft that we have access to for our partners with Gogo in-flight. From an international perspective, today there's about 300 plus aircraft that are provided, but there's 23 other airlines. Some of those that are listed here on this slide: Etihad, KLM, Singapore, China Airlines, Air France, that are in the queue for us going through integration. We also, from an iPass perspective, just signed a deal directly with our friends at United Airlines. Signed a deal back in probably the October timeframe of 2016. We are in integration with United as we speak. We're looking at bringing them online probably sometime in third quarter of this year, and that will add another 735 aircraft to the mix. So again, from an iPass perspective, we believe in in-flight, we believe in that connectivity, and it's full focus for us in driving more of those carriers into our network, into our footprint. So with that said, I'm going to open up for any questions that any of you have. As I said, we encourage and want any questions that you have. So I'll stop here. I don't see anything on the chat room, so I'll take a moment and allow anybody to type any questions that they may want to ask. And if no one asks any questions, Kathee's going to sing for us. So I would highly suggest that you ask questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, you're very welcome, Kathee. Let's see here. So it looks like I have, so Azam Mohammed just asked a question: who are your competitors? So Kathee, do you want to take that?
Well, our competitors out there, there's Panasonic, there's Row 44, there's Emersat, and I don't know if he's referring to competitors for you, for iPass. I don't know if you've got any.
Good question.
That you can. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Azam, I think on competitors, as we're leaning towards in-flight, there's, as Kathee mentioned, Panasonic Avionics is a company out of Orange County, California, that have some partnerships with American Airlines and others. There's Viasat, which is a company here in San Diego, California, that also provide service with competitors or with an in-flight product. Deutsche Telekom over in Germany has partnered with a number of carriers and are in the middle of creating what's called the European Air Network, EAN, that will launch sometime this year. We're not exactly when. And a lot of the carriers today have multiple partners. As an example, American Airlines works with Gogo, as Kathee has mentioned, but also has partnerships for connectivity with some of the other partners. So I hope that answers your question, Azam. So we got a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to see. So Jackie Wagner from Travel One has a question. Do you offer corporate group purchasing options of iPass Gogo versus just individual purchasing options? So we, from an iPass perspective, we do offer corporate programs that offer Gogo as part of the footprint, and we can certainly, provide more information for you, Jackie, to drive that and give you more information there. Let's see. Jim Baker from Zentrans, who is the one that's streaming us today, it says, does Gogo or iPass see trains as a potential market opportunity? Let me start with, from my perspective, the answer is yes, Jim. We actually, as part of the iPass offering, we currently have access to trains for our partners in both Europe and Asia through Virgin Trains and some others. We have had some discussions with I think your company, Amtrak. So yes, the simple answer is yes. We very much see trains as a potential market opportunity, without a doubt. Sean Lee asked the question, does iPass have all of Gogo's footprint? Yes, we do. We have access to the entire Gogo footprint. Let's see. Also, Jim Baker again. Kathee, I think this is more for you. Satellite superior capacity is key. Does Gogo expect to phase out ATG over time?
That is a very good question. At this present time, no, because we're investing in the next gen for ATG networks. It's very cost efficient to have cell towers over large land masses. When you think about it, how many of us have satellite telephones? We all have cellular phones, right? And the folks that have satellite phones are the ones that live in remote locations. So for the present time, we're committed to our ATG network over North America and just making it bigger, better, and faster.
Yeah, and I think Kathee, the comment that you made about the next gen ATG with the speeds that you spoke about will address that issue, correct?
Right.
Okay, great. Have a question from Shane over at US Foods. For iPass, is Southwest Airlines being discussed to be added to the service offering? Yes, we have been having some discussions with Southwest. At the present time, Southwest has not prioritized what we would call kind of third-party access, but it is very much on our radar, pardon the pun, to get Southwest as part of the footprint. Absolutely. Let's see here. We've got a question from. Let's see. We got a question from Jennifer Morrow at Sun Chemical. Asking about some pricing. Do you employ a dynamic or straight pricing structure? So Jennifer, from an iPass perspective, we have what's called unlimited. We provide, and we can get more in specifics. I won't go too much in the weeds today, but our unlimited offer is a straight pricing per user per month approach. And when we talk about unlimited, we mean that from the perspective is we do not cap usage. We do not limit, necessarily the number of devices. It is a flat fee per user. We find that particular pricing model much more effective because it's not tied to usage. It's not tied to any megabyte or any quantity or any time based. So those of you who manage budgets can better understand what your cost every month is for things such as Wi-Fi connectivity. Okay? Let's see here. Jim Baker asks the question, does iPass see a tiered service as possible, free to be paid Wi-Fi? Jim, I'm not sure I understand the question. That might result back to what I just responded back to Jennifer. We do have the unlimited pricing model inclusive of our in-flight offering. We don't necessarily tier it. Now, what tiers could be is, based on some growth where we might be able to look at dropping pricing based on, usage or the number of folks utilizing the service. I hope that answers the question. Steve Haddock from Webbing asked, any limitations on streaming or bandwidth? Is this based on airlines? So, Kathee, you want to handle that one, and then I'll come over to the top?
Well, I think it's based on the technology that's on the aircraft, right? So the air-to-ground network today does not allow streaming video, and our 2KU, which is our latest generation out there, will allow the streaming video. It'll be super fast. So it depends on the aircraft, the type of equipment that's installed on the aircraft.
Thanks, Kathee. Mark Albert asked, Kathee, this is for you. Can you give us an airline by airline rollout for the 2KU in 2018?
That I don't have per se, because it's really dependent on the airline's schedule to bring the aircraft in for maintenance and installation. So the plans are obviously to get them installed as quickly as possible. So the overarching is that we plan to have the majority of those 1,500 aircraft installed by the end of 2018 with the 2KU.
Great, thanks. Got another question from Steve Garish. And Steve, I apologize if I butchered your last name, with NVD, talking about kind of the United rollout. We were anticipating having United live and up and running in a March timeframe. As Kathee just mentioned, it's not a simple flip the switch for United or for airlines, because the airlines themselves are they're very particular about pulling aircraft out of service to do software updates, because that's how they make their money. So we're moving as quickly as we can with United in terms of getting them live, but it's a step process, especially the fact that we're also dealing with from a United perspective, 4 different partners that are providing the Wi-Fi access on board. So we're as anxious to get United as part of the footprint as probably anybody on the phone. Okay. Let's see here. I've got another question from Shane. Let's see. Would you consider flexing, tiering the price based on travelers that access the air service in a given month? It looks like you have a number of travelers that do not necessarily travel by air every month, but travel frequently. Shane, the simple answer would be we're open to discussions, and probably the best thing to do was to get in contact with us, and we can have a more specific conversation. Again, what we find is the unlimited approach gives us the ability to be more aggressive in pricing, but we do a lot of different things because of the nature of how we price the product. So maybe we can have a one-off, and more than happy to have that discussion. Mark Albert, again from the Voyage Report, how long does each installation take per aircraft for 2KU? Kathee, that's back to you.
I would anticipate it's a couple of days from an install perspective. I don't have the exact details on that, but I can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay. And we can follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Cabrera, how stable is in-flight Wi-Fi for international travel to and from the U.S.? Kathee, you want to handle that, since that's, especially from a Delta perspective?
Well, obviously it's satellite based, right? So we've had great results for the international fleet as far as the stability and the connectivity from the satellite perspective. And it's only going to get better as time goes on, particularly with the next gen.
Yeah, and I think, Daniel, stable, and probably a little bit, more than happy to have more of the discussion there. There's another piece of stable that I'll add, and that's secure. And for those iPass customers utilizing, our solution, as part of the solution itself, we do offer an additional last mile VPN that adds another level of security to the connection. So not only is the Inflight stable from a usage perspective, but from a security perspective, we add that little bit of extra comfort for all of our partners. Okay. Let's see here. Mark Albert again. Kathee, Mark is just responding back, following with the follow-up on time it takes to install 2KU aircraft and provides an email address. So we have Mark's email address that we can follow up.
Okay.
Let's see here. I've got let's see, that's the message from Daniel. Just want to make sure I'm getting through all of these. Let's see. Lisa Flanagan. When will United be active with iPass? We are, again, earlier comment, we're probably looking at third quarter of this year to where we're able to roll out all 735 aircraft. The initial rollout will be targeted to, of the 735, roughly 500 or so aircraft, or what they call as their U.S. fleet, the remaining being those airplanes that are flying international. So the initial rollout will be targeted at the U.S. fleet. We're working with United on a rollout plan as much as possible because, as I said earlier, one, airlines are very concerned about taking aircraft out of service because that's their bread and butter in terms of how they make revenue or how they make money. And then the second part is that not all aircraft fly the same route. So as an example, you might get on an airplane, a 757 aircraft flying from San Diego to Denver, and you have that Wi-Fi access. And the next day you might fly, or the next week you might fly that same route, and it's a 737 aircraft that don't. So we're working with our airline partners as much as possible to be more proactive on getting Wi-Fi across the fleets. Okay. Let's see here. Again, just making sure that I'm getting all the questions. Oh, here we go. Jerry Willie from Profit Brand Strategy. By what Wi-Fi name SSID are the ground hotspots found? Jerry, are you? Well, there's a common SSID that is flown. Kathee, you want to handle that from an SSID perspective relative to Gogo?
Well, any and all of the Gogo Inflight SSIDs it's Gogo Inflight airborne. So I don't know
are they under? Actually, he's saying are they under Gogo? Is it a Gogo SSID?
For your ground-based types, no. Reread the question again, Jeff, because I was under the impression he was asking about the ground-based sites.
Yeah, what it says is by what Wi-Fi name SSID are the ground hotspots found?
Okay.
Right. So
we're
I think there's
strictly in air.
Go ahead, Kathee.
No, I was going to say we're strictly in flight. So I think he's asking what the iPass SSID would be on for the ground networks.
Right. So Jerry, it's a bit of a longer answer, so I'll try to, just for time base, be specific. For those customers that are utilizing iPass, and what we have is we have a solution that resides on the devices. It's supported by iOS, it's supported by Android, it's supported by Windows, and it's supported by Mac. So basically all the different operating systems that you could possibly have. And that solution resides on the devices. And what that solution does is it automatically connects our users, our customers, to the available networks that is part of our directory. So it's not any longer to where our users have to find a Wi-Fi hotspot or an SSID, determine if it's part of their directory or their offering, because the solution does that for them. On Inflight, it acts similar with one little caveat. So when you get on board a Gogo-enabled aircraft, the Wi-Fi becomes available above 10,000 feet. And once the Wi-Fi is available, the user opens or launches their browser. And what comes up is our solution, the iPass solution, recognizes the SSID that is on that aircraft, whether it's the Gogo, whether it's an American flight or a Virgin flight or an Alaska flight or whatever it is, recognizes that, yes, that's part of their offering. And the only thing that the user has to do manually to get connected is CAPTCHA. And for those of you who don't know what CAPTCHA is, I'm sure you all do, but CAPTCHA is the letters that you have to type in to prove that you're a person and you're not a robot. It's a security function, right? Once that user types in CAPTCHA, the user is then connected. There is no username, password. There is no pulling out a credit card. It is done automatically. Okay? So, again, going back to the pillars of iPass, we talked about unlimited, but invisible is also part of the equation. And what we mean by invisible is we're just taking the friction and the connection process out of the hands of the user and just doing it for them. Okay? Luis Escobar asked, can I use my SIP VoIP app with Gogo or iPass?
And
so Kathee, VoIP related.
Voice right now is not allowed, and it's more of an airline decision. Technically, voice can work over the networks, but from a social perspective, at least the North American airlines have prohibited the use of voice at this point. That may change down the road, but so depending on where you're flying, obviously you're going to have restrictions because of that. Now, I don't know, Jeff, you have other airline partners on other services, especially probably in the Middle East, that allow voice, I believe.
Yeah, there was another question that Daniel Cabrera asked in line with that. Are there plans to accommodate domestic and international Wi-Fi flights, and are there any iPass plans to include in-flight and terrestrial Wi-Fi? The answer is yes. We actually have today, through some other partnerships, access to international Wi-Fi through some partners. We do have pricing components that include access for both domestic and international Wi-Fi, as well as access to the terrestrial Wi-Fi networks that I spoke of earlier. Okay. Luis also asked a question about texting. You can speak to that, Kathee, given your partnership with the T-Mobile folks.
Correct. Gogo Inflight does have the availability for texting operations, so it's across our network.
Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. By the way, guys, thanks. Great questions. Thank you for participating. I'm just making sure that I'm capturing all the ones. I think those are the ones that I have. Those are the ones that I have to date. So what we will do is, obviously, we have a record, or we'll make sure on the follow-ups that need to be follow-up is part of the presentation. And I'll change the screen very quickly. As part of the presentation, there are, here's some information on how to get in contact with us at iPass, either my email address or through our sales channel. Either way, we'll get you to the right folks in terms of getting more information based on the questions that were asked during the Q&A. So it looks like that is all the questions that I had. If for whatever reason I didn't answer your question, please feel free to reach out. We do have some follow-up. And unless there's anything else, I will give you back 16 minutes of your day. We very much appreciate you guys taking the time to share some time with us today. So thank you. Have a good rest of your day.